Michael, your wife Vivian, as much as you, is a mainstay at mining events with her lovely Scottish brogue. Tell me about her role in your career.
Well, Vivian and I met in the late 60s. We got married in 72. We've been together for all these years, and she knows more mining people than most mining people think they do. She's visited more mining universities with me and a number of mines. She's been tremendously supportive, and so have I have three boys, my three sons. I'm trying to coach a little bit the grandchildren now as well. But I have been, let's say, I have the pleasure of having a very supportive family with my schedule at Virginia Tech and also my activities with SME and AIME and others. I travel a lot. They have been very patient with me in coming back and forth and traveling in places, and where I can, Vivian will come with me, and she will enjoy visiting with other mining people, and it has been a great time. And as I said, I'm really fortunate to have a very supportive family. Vivian is an accomplished cook and chef, and a very demanding person. So we go to a restaurant, they ask if we have any allergies. She thinks bad food is the worst allergy that we all have. So we're having good fun. So she's enjoying this meeting as well.
Well, speaking of societies, could you tell me a bit about the role they've played in your career, all the societies you're a member of, and your leadership positions in those societies?
Right. I joined SME when I came to this country. I was already a member of another great institution, which is the Institute of Mining and Metallurgy, which was a very global institution at that time, headquartered in London. It changed nature. It became more of a materials community than mining. And the first SME meeting that I went to was in Las Vegas. And as a young guy who's never been to Las Vegas, I thought this is a great society and they take me to the right places. And then I do recall at that time SME had also fall meetings. And the fall meetings actually were even more technical than the annual meeting because they were more focused on sessions and technology. And I remember, believe it or not, being in a fall meeting in Hawaii, and Paul Chug, a colleague from SIU, and I ran a short course and a symposium before the meeting on longwall mining and subsidence in the middle of Waikiki Beach, which was quite an oxymoron, but it was a great place. And I started moving through the usual way through some unit committees. It was the Rock Mechanics Unit Committee that I was involved, and then some other committees. And my mentor there was somebody who also became a president of SME and AIME, and a wonderful guy by the name of Don Gentry, that some of you may remember. He was at Colorado School of Mines. He served there as a dean, head of department at Colorado School of Mines. And Don was a mentor for me, a great friend. He was a motivator. He was brutally honest. If he didn't like something, he would tell you straight out. And he always said, don't ask Gentry to do something because he will do it. So if you don't want something done, just don't talk to him about it. And he was a doer and he was a motivator. So he moved to be the president of SME, so he encouraged me to move to the leadership role. And at that point it was the board of SME, who was a very large board. And then at some point I had the opportunity to run for an election to be a president of SME, which of course I lost. But then the system changed and people thought that I should be the president. So I became a president, and that was a very difficult time. The two or three presidents before me and two or three presidents after me, we all faced the same problem. It was yet another down cycle of the mining industry. Very few jobs out there. The universities were going through the experience that I mentioned before, that they were losing students. People in companies, they were not very supportive in coming to SME meetings, and the membership was dropping at an alarming rate. We all were trying and struggling how we can arrest this, and it was not anything that could do something, and some of us tried with certain means that I will talk about it later on. But it was at a very transitional time because we dropped, and I can't remember the numbers, but huge number of membership, to the point that we were concerned about, do we have the critical mass to operate as a society the way we should. I became a president on 2002, and that was one of those bad years. The people before me had made a decision to have an annual meeting in Cincinnati, Ohio. Everybody, particularly the metal miners, thought that was a horrible idea. It's going to be a terrible time. So that was the year of my presidency, and I gave the baton to Tom O'Neill in Cincinnati. And it was interesting because I always thought that and saw that, and although I did a tremendous amount of work to motivate people to come to the Cincinnati meeting, we had a case that we had more industrial minerals and aggregates meeting, even people in the meeting in Cincinnati that went before, but very few metal mining people came. So that, and coal miners, they were there. So that crystallized to me the simple fact that coal mining people will travel anywhere for a meeting, and aggregates and stone people have no problem, they will travel anywhere. But metal miners don't travel east of the Mississippi. That's the fact, and what it is what it is. So when I became president of SME, learning from the experience I had at the mining department as department head in diversifying, I asked some people around, because by that time I knew the aggregate business very well, why don't you come to the SME meeting, why you are not members? And they said, well, programming ways, we don't have that much to do there. I said, well, but you had industrial minerals. He said, we're not industrial minerals, we're construction materials, we're different. So I tried through SME to see what can we do. So I established by presidential decree, because I must tell you, not everybody agreed with me at that point, a committee, because I could do this without, getting along. Like the presidential decree of the president, he can do certain things. I established this committee, which is called Construction Materials and Aggregates Committee, and I asked certain people that I knew, Drew Meyer being one, that later became a president of SME, if they can help me to motivate more people from that community. So that was one thing that actually bear fruits. Later on, as you know, we expanded, and we do have a lot of people from the aggregates community now here. And I think that was a good move to try to become even broader. And I'm glad that it's helping the SME the way it helped the mining department. Also, when I was at SME, it was the beginning of the discussion of mining and sustainability. And I was quite a bit interested with this. I never thought the sustainable development part the way it was presented to me, and it made so much sense in order to try to get the social license to operate, as we say now. And I do realize the mining industry was a bit hesitant about all that for quite a while, particularly the US mining industry. So I tried to push this, so I helped create, during my president time, the Sustainable Development Committee, which now works very well with many other committees. And we did something which was quite unique, I thought. At that point, the companies, or many companies, had created a pact, a Sustainable Development Community, if you will. And the company would say, Rio Tinto, for example, or BHP, the big global companies, we believe on corporate responsibility, sustainable development, this is our goal as companies. Later on, the US companies did the same. If you open any major mining publicly traded company, you will see corporate responsibility, sustainability reports. They follow soon later. But SME is not really a trade association. It's a group of members, of individuals. And I felt that we ought to come with a statement to say not our companies believe, but what we believe professionally about sustainability.
Michael, you're passionate about sustainable mining principles. Tell me a bit about your work with the SME and sustainability.
Yes, at that time, it was obvious that the global mining industry was moving into a sustainability and sustainable development sort of culture. There was a very large, complicated but huge study that was undertaken, the MMSD as is known as study, and everybody was very active. Not all companies came forward with that. They were a little bit reserved. But out of that, things grew very well. And all the companies around the world now, they have sustainability reports, they have corporate responsibility reports. And as I said, companies present their own culture, their own shareholders' view, but they do not represent individuals, they're companies. And SME and AIME and the other societies are societies for individuals. So I felt we ought to be doing something a bit more through the societies to see and demonstrate a little bit our commitment to sustainable development, mining practices and sustainability. So I developed a committee, a Sustainable Development Committee for SME, and I asked some key members of that committee, which is Dirk Van Zyl, Debbie Shields and Carol Russell, and myself, and I said, let's do this. Why don't we develop a document which is what is the sustainable development aspects of our profession? What do we believe in sustainability as mining engineers? And we don't want a 20-page document, we want a 2-page document. And at that point, the industry had signed a declaration as companies of sustainability, and I said we should have a declaration as individuals represented by our society. So what do we believe sustainability should be all about? So we made a draft, and all these individuals worked very hard to develop this draft. And I took this draft as president of SME, and I went to the Canadians, and I asked their professional society, if we do this, can we do it together? And both you and us as North American, large North American societies in the area can endorse this as a document? And they said, yes, we'll accept it. And then I talked to the Australians, and the Australians said yes, and then the South Africans. So this is the only document that I know all the major global professional societies agreed upon. And then we had a meeting, the first Sustainable Development meeting, and we have a series of these that we did after that. And very characteristically, we did that meeting in a Greek island called Milos, M-I-L-O-S. Some people would remember the Aphrodite de Milos, which is the statue of Aphrodite that was credited to the island. But this is a beautiful island, but also an island where mining has been going on since thousands of years ago, and even now is one of the world's largest producers of bentonite and pearlite. And you have an island where you have history and archaeology, you have tourism, and you have mining, all living together with minimum amount of conflict, and all trying to maximize and learn from each other. So we had this meeting in Milos, and we more or less publicly acknowledged that declaration, who goes now under the name of Milos Declaration. And it is a wonderful document, and I think that was a great contribution that the professional societies and technical societies came together to support, that it is basically how we as individuals, not our companies, see sustainability and what it means. Since then, things have moved a big way, and the next thing was, how do you incorporate sustainability to the mining curriculum now, right? So all the universities, I think, have doing this successfully. We talk a lot about sustainable practices nowadays. We talk about engagement and responsibility with the communities. We try to bring aspects of what happens globally with artisanal mining and smaller communities. So we have gone a long way, not only in talking about sustainability, but trying to introduce it to the new generation via the curriculum. So I'm very proud of those things that we did when I was president of SME. And the last thing that I did, I learned from my experience in universities of having advisory boards. And if you have an advisory board, you get a lot of advice. Now, when you get advice, people think that you ought to follow, do something about it, and not just get advice. So I set up an advisory board for SME, primarily comprised of industry people. And we had 2 meetings during my tenure, and there were people from major metal mining companies and coal companies, and we were able to get a little bit of a better understanding of what the CEOs felt SME should be doing, and we were able to, I think, better explain to the CEOs what we need from them. And I do recall, and I won't mention the company, but one major company, and remember, this at the time of decreasing membership. And I said, well, maybe you can help by having all the mining engineers that you have, having their membership paid by the company. It's a token of your support to the company. And he said, that's a great idea. Let me talk to my guys. And he calls me up and said, Mike, we already do that. And he didn't even know that. And actually, the engineers who work for the company didn't even know that. And then at one point, this is a coal company at this time with a very supportive president who was also a mining engineer, had put a travel moratorium. And I was the time that I was president, and I was calling up the companies, make sure you come to the meeting. And they said, well, we would love to come, but the company says we cannot travel. And I said, oh. So I went to see the CEO and the president, who was a member of SME as well. And I said, you got to do something, let these guys travel. He said, of course they should travel, this is an important meeting. But I said, your people don't think so, because their mine managers read something from the head office, travel, so they took the easy way out, said nobody goes anywhere. And that's not what he had in mind. So I asked him, could you send a memo somewhere and say, well, that doesn't include professional meetings and what have you. So we learned a lot from them, and that was at the time we were desperately trying to get more members, more participation from the companies, getting back to provide more support for universities and all that. Very soon after I finished my term in mining, of course, we had the beginning of the super cycle. And that was the longest super cycle in history. What it was, 11 or 12 years of increased prices, increased valuation of the companies. It was a different story. The SME began to mushroom again and all that. So I enjoy quite a bit SME. You asked for society, so I need to talk about AIME a little bit. So I represented the SME to the AIME board, which is the tradition that we have. I was then a board member, and I did join in at a time that was quite a bit, I don't know if friction is the right word, but let's say difference of opinion between the four societies of what AIME should be doing. So the previous presidents out of SME warned me that this is a bit confrontational, and I said, well, let me see, what is the problem there? So when I went there, I could sense this, but there was one thing that all the societies agreed, and they were very passionate about it, and that is they want to get out of having a head office in New York. It was an expensive way to do it. There was an opportunity to sell the building and make some money for all the societies and AIME. And the contentious point was, where should AIME go? Because at that point it wasn't a virtual AIME, it had to have some office somewhere. So there was a number of societies that they felt AIME should move with them. I, of course, being an SME member, thought they should be joining SME in Colorado. There was a process, it was a little bit sensitive at the time and a little bit tenuous, but nevertheless the decision was made to bring AIME back to SME, if you will, and being an independent group but headquartered here. So when I became president of AIME, it was already the decision as a board member. I had supported, of course, the move. And many of the other societies realized that the AIME roots were out of SME. In fact, out of the anthracite coal miners, right? So there was a lot of tradition and history. So since that time, and during my time as president of AIME, the climate was totally different. The societies worked together. There was a better reorganization of what we do with money, how to support common projects and common goals. So I'm very pleased to see AIME sort of mushrooming, doing very well, and shepherding the societies a little bit and do what we can do now, and uh, giving more responsibility to the societies with the award. So that was a very pleasant experience. I also served a term as a vice chair, I think, or vice president, I think, or whatever was the term, of the UEF, the United Engineering Foundation. There was a different experience. We had our own little issues as well, because you have all the major founding societies represented: the civils, the mechanical, the electrical, the chemicals, and some of the societies are humongous. But it was a great group of people. I learned a lot from the electrical engineers and the mechanical and the civils on what was their issues. And we worked very well together. We were supporting work done by other societies, member societies or elsewhere, and we developed some very important common activities. They had a great executive director there by the name of David Belden, who had been before the executive director of the industrial engineers and the mechanical engineers. He was an ex-military guy who ran everything with a military kind of fist, but he was a wonderful guy. So that was a great experience, and it was good to be able to be in a position to give money away rather than on my early faculty days asking for money. So that was a very nice experience. The other group that I have enjoyed and I still spend a lot of time with was a group called the Society of Mining Professors. This is an interesting group. It was originally founded in the 1600s in Germany and Central Europe. I should say in what it is today, what it is today is Slovakia and Central Europe. But it was between Slovakia and Czechia and Hungary and Poland and Germany. That was the primary membership. But it was the first ever technical society. So if you were a mechanical engineer and you didn't have a society, you joined the Society of Mining Professors. So although it was mining professor, it was the only thing that there was in a technical and scientific society that was out there. And that society had mushroomed over the years, but then it went down to dissipate. Many more different societies were created. And back in the early 90s, certain folks decided that, hey, the mining people should get together globally, should share resources, because a lot of the global mining departments had the same issue: less students, departments shutting down. How can you work together? And with the leadership of certain older and senior professors out of Austria and Germany and others out of Britain as well, Imperial College, they decided to revamp the society. It was called the Societat der Bergbaukunde, which is the German name for Society of Mining Professors. They were very innovative, although mostly all of them were German speaking. They decided the speaking language should be English, because that's supposed to be an international society. I had the pleasure to be asked to be the representative of the US community, and over many years, with help of many great people, I think I helped to create this, or to transform this from a Central European kind of a society to a global society. Now we have members in something like, I don't know, 50, 60 universities, 300 professors from around the world. It's not only for senior people, everybody can be there. And we really try to help each other. One of the major goals that we have is to help capacity building. We work with countries in the developing world who have very few resources to deal and develop mining programs. We help young professors with advancement in what they do. I was the president for 1 year, and then I served as the executive secretary for a long time. I'm now emeritus out of there. They have great leadership, but I still work with them on many, many projects. And in fact, they are represented here very well. As you know, we have a lot of people around the world who are here because of SOMP, and I do get a lot of pleasure working with them. We do a lot of diversity nowadays, both in terms of gender, but in terms of ethnicity and color, and that is quite important, because we have groups in Africa that we're trying to motivate, And we do something which is a very interesting one. We do a lot of regional meetings, because after developing the world, it's very difficult to travel to a big annual meeting in the US or in another place. So we try to bring some of our expertise and advice to regional meetings. We had regional meetings in Colombia, in Chile, in Peru, in Namibia, and many other places. So I take a lot of pleasure with that group as well. So it's a good social group as well. So they have a good time when we get together.
What has been your favorite part of working in the mining industry?
I suppose we are in a university that is part of the industry, but I will step back and look at those who are not in academia in a way. And I have enjoyed working with alumni. I'm always amazed that, and this is unique to the US educational system, maybe with few exceptions, that the loyalty that you get from the students you graduate is quite phenomenal. They will help you financially, right? Sometimes with tremendous generosity, but they will help you by giving you access to mines and facilities, advise you. I mean, the connection that you get between those who graduated and you is a bond. It's quite an incredible, powerful bond. And I have really enjoyed that. And as you know, we can call just about anywhere an alumnus or a friend, and they will do anything to help. I have enjoyed working with certain leaders within the industry. I won't go name by name, because they were innovators and they did things the different way. And people I have seen who have such tremendous loyalty from their own miners and employees. You can see if you visit a company, and if you have a chance to go with a senior manager or the president of the company around on a mine, and you see people, you see the respect, you see the people know each other, it's quite phenomenal. You don't see this in many industries, which I think that is unique to the mining industry. And finally, I think you get a lot of camaraderie. I mean, even if you know nobody, you go to a place and you meet somebody, or you want something, or you want to do something, and you say, I'm a mining engineer, I'm at this university, and I do work with a lot of companies, and I would like to do something, and what do you think? And you will get help and support and advice and everything. So this is like a fraternity between the universities, the alumni, and the industry as a whole. You don't get the same kind of connection and feeling that you get within the mining community as a whole, and I include everybody. I include the universities, the industry, the government, the community that we're engaged, is quite phenomenal. I think you don't see it anywhere else. So it's been a pleasure working under that kind of a system that gives you so much. Since we're talking about the mining industry, one of the items I would like to talk about is that I have been very fortunate and very privileged actually to meet, work, and do all sorts of joint programs with a great number of people who were leaders in the mining industry and individuals who left their marks forever, really, in our industry. And I will mention a few people by name because they were so unique. The first person I would like to make, I need to take you back to the mid-1980s. This is when I became a department head. And at that point, the mining industry, and I'm talking about all segments of the industry, coal, metal, and industrial minerals, they were all under a terrible depression, to the point that one of the major magazines produced one monthly report with a big picture on the front page that simply said, "The death of mining." And at that time, companies weren't recruiting, and that had a tremendous impact, negative impact, on the enrollment in all mining departments in the country. I was trying to think what one could do about that to reverse it at some point. And I sought a meeting with the person who was at the time the president and CEO of Consolidation Coal Company, or Consol Energy, as it became later. At that point, that company was a subsidiary of Conoco, and the CEO, a gentleman by the name of Bobby R. Brown, had come from Conoco into Consol, and his responsibilities with Conoco had included for a long time human resources. So in coming to a mining company, he knew an awful lot of things about building capital, building a workforce, and he was a great supporter of human resources and development of relationships with universities. So through a friend, I was able to go and see in Pittsburgh Mr. Brown. So Mr. Brown looked at me, heard me. He was a short man with a very commanding voice, and said, well, I thought we were recruiting and hiring people in all the mining schools in the country. I said, well, no, Mr. Brown, actually, you're not doing any of that. He was really astounded by that. So even at the time when companies were losing money, he directed his human resources and the manager of that unit, a fellow by the name of Ivan Ron, to appear to every mining school in the country, even schools who had no interest in coal mining at all, and start hiring summer students and eventually permanent position students. And in essence, it was for a while the only company that had invested so much in every mining school in the country. And the old-timers, who are my cohorts in a way, they really understand, appreciate the fact that we survived this terrible down cycle simply because of the initiative and the responsibility that Mr. Brown showed in ensuring that there is a viable mining industry out there for the country. And I have to mention his name because he was really a unique individual with a unique contribution. Actually, he passed away recently, and at a very old age, I must admit, and I always remember him because of that. The second person that I would like to mention is a person or a fellow by the name of Michael J. Quillen. And he's not a mining engineer, he was a civil engineer, he is a civil engineer, but he spent all his life working in coal companies. He worked in production, in engineering, in operations, in sales, and also as a CEO of a number of companies, and eventually he built one of the largest coal mining companies in the country. And I like to mention him because he's an incredible individual in building relationships with everybody, including his miners. He had a very personal, it's difficult to describe, connection with people who work for him. And people had every faith and trust on him and his decisions. And even after retirement, he's living in an area in Southwest Virginia very close to the coal mines, and he spends most of his time in trying to find out ways of developing economic activity and economic development opportunities for the retired miners or the displaced miners, and also for the community as well. So he's really an actual resource for Southwest Virginia, for his leadership and what he has done and what he's still doing. The last person that I would like to mention is a fellow which is quite unique, a mining engineer, graduate of Virginia Tech from the early 50s, but also an attorney, a graduate of that other dreaded university in Virginia, the University of Virginia. But as a lawyer and a mining engineer, he has been a pillar of the community in Southwest Virginia. He always lived in the coal fields. He worked out of the coal fields. He has retired in the coal fields. He has helped numerous causes. He's generous. He's a tremendously sincere and direct individual, and he's a real mentor not only to me, but to many, many people that I know, for his sincerity, his wisdom, and he's also another what I call resource for our area and for the coal industries. And he goes by the name of F.D. Robertson, but his nickname is Red because in his older age, when he had a lot of hair, they were all red. He was a cadet at Virginia Tech, and believe it or not, even at his later stage and age in life, the only thing he wanted to do to ensure he still maintains his PE in mining engineering active, and I will teach a short course once a year to help him get the PDH hours that they needed. He was right on the front desk asking questions, a unique person with a very great heart and very generous to the community and to all his friends, and I think he's somebody that I would like to mention as well.
What do you perceive to be the single biggest challenge right now facing the mining industry?
I think the biggest challenge we have, and it is facing the industry and the operators as well as the universities, is we're right on the border, on the edge of a huge change in what we do. And that all is because of digital technology, digital information and everything else. We've already seen it in our house. After my kids telling me now for about a few years, Vivian and I communicate with Alexa, and we turn the TV on and off, and we can do all sorts of things. And I thought to myself, who knew that? I remember when the remote control for the television changed from being connected to a huge wire that you take it so far. I mean, things are incredible what is happening. So if you look at this, what is going to happen very soon, I think things are already here. The industry will change tremendously. It will become a totally different industry from what it is now. And digital, sometimes because we're technical people, we will look at it from the point of view of the operations, remote control and autonomous stuff, and that's fine. But digital also, it means the digitalization of human resources, of economic systems, of everything that a company does. And this is nothing revolutionary, it's coming. Some companies move faster than the others. So within very few years, we will have a totally different industry. And that industry will require totally different employees. Not only the mining engineers who graduate, but also everybody who works in a mine. I was in a meeting of safety people in Peru not long ago, and one of the safety directors, they were discussing how they train people, and everybody had their own ways of doing it, and of course a lot of the techniques we all know, that there is written material, there is videos, there are VCRs, there is augmented reality that you can do things, but he said at the end of the day, you want to recruit a new miner, unless you can train them with the power of your phone, forget it. That's where we are. So basically, we need to learn to train people differently, including the students that we have in our universities, and also to train people who want to get into the mining business differently. We are training the Z generation, which is the digital generation, through the web, and they do I mean, I'm amazed at what my kids do. I mean, they never go shopping, they just order everything through their phones, they pay bills through their phones, they do banking through their phones. I will tell you how fast things have moved, and I will give you an example from China. I was in China not long ago, and I realized nobody was using any money, cash, nobody was using any credit cards, they're all paying through their phones. Now you see this occasionally here, but I've never seen it in such extended kind of usage. And I was there with a friend of mine, an Australian who happens to be of Chinese descent, and we were walking one part, and it was a beggar in the street who, as we were walking, he picked up his phone and said in Chinese, and it was translated to me, "Can you put some money on my phone?" And I thought to myself, really? I mean, unbelievable. So we are moving faster than we really understand to the next stage and the next phase. So the challenge for the industry and for us is how we're going to get into this transition and move forward and be prepared for it, because that will change everything that we do. So at the university, we are always struggling with breadth versus depth and traditional subjects versus new subjects. However we compromise this, and we will at the end of the day, our graduates will be different from what they are now. They were able to do more things on the phone, more things remotely, and the industries would be different as well. And as I said, I read quite a lot of articles on this. The benefits of digital sort of operations are including not just the technical stuff, but everything that the company does, everything through there, all of the systems from human resources to recruiting to managing systems, and that's what you will see. So we're seeing it, as I said, now up to a point, but there's no way we can even imagine what it's going to look like even 10 years from now, in my view. So let's get ready for it.
Is there any story or point you'd like to make that we didn't discuss here?
No, I think I talk too much, but my wife said usually I'm known to do that. But I want to thank AIME for their initiative. I want to thank you for doing such a good job asking all these questions. And I need to tell everybody we didn't rehearse either, so I thought, I wonder what he's going to be asking me for. But I just wanted to say I consider myself lucky that I've worked with so many good people, both not only in my own place, my own institution, but around the world. And I'm fortunate to count a lot of friends, and I have enjoyed traveling and I have enjoyed working with everybody. And so keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, Michael.